awareness to shift from being focused on the world outside you to being focused on the world inside you. Just draw that awareness inward. And allow that awareness to merge with your breath. Don't try to change the breath in any way. Just become deeply, intricately aware of the breath, all of the nuances as it flows in and flows out. If the mind wanders, don't worry, just bring it back lovingly to the breath. And as you inhale, feel those waters of Mother Ganga flowing into you and through you. Mother Ganga flows not only outside of us, not only in her riverbed, just along the Ghats, but she actually flows into and through us if we open and allow. So as you inhale, just allow the waters of Mother Ganga to flow into you. And feel those waters flowing through you, loosening and removing all of that within you which is stuck. Grudges, unfulfilled expectations, illusions, attachments, stories we tell ourselves about ourselves, our personalities, our histories. All of this stuff actually clogs up that inner channel, that beautiful channel through which the divine flows. So as you feel the waters of Mother Ganga flowing through you, feel those waters freeing you from all of that stuff that's blocking your channel on the inside. Feel that rush of divine energy. That rush of the presence of the Mother Goddess. As you inhale, just open and let her flow in. And on each exhalation, allow yourself to let go. Let go into her flowing waters. Just let go of all of that you're holding on to. Thoughts and beliefs and identities. Attachments. Preconceived notions, agendas. All of that, just let it go into the waters of Mother Ganga as you exhale and let go. Slowly and gently, bring the palms of your hands together at chest level and gently rub the palms of your hands against each other. Press the palms of your hands into your closed eyes. Slowly open your eyes and lower your hands. Welcome to Satsang. So wonderful to be together with you all this evening. We'll start as usual with a question that's come from our audience online, our online family, and then we will take any question that anyone here has. I am a member of the LGBT community. The recent judgment of the Supreme Court is against gay marriage, isn't this adharma against us? Or is this just because society is not yet ready? So there was a moment, not very long ago, in which it actually seemed that India was going to take a huge step forward in the embrace of, acceptance of a wider definition of marriage than had previously existed. And I remember at that moment feeling so incredibly proud of and impressed by all of the leaders who had been part of making this a new movement. The recent Supreme Court decision is difficult. It's something that on a personal level I think will be changed relatively soon. I certainly hope it will be changed relatively soon. I think it's important, though, for us to realize several things. First of all, if you go back through history, it was not that long ago. I'm originally from America, and it was not that long ago in America where women weren't allowed to vote. It was against the law. Wasn't so long ago in which it was against the law for Black people to use the same water fountains, drinking fountains, toilets, tables, counters in restaurants as white people. It was against the law. There were actually laws on the books of which toilets, which water fountains, etc., that people with black skin had to use compared to the people with white skin. There have been, throughout history, there have been all kinds of laws on the books of so many different nations that we look back on now and we think, I cannot believe that there was a time in which it was against the law for someone with black skin to sit in the front of the bus, or to use certain bathrooms or drinking fountains, or go certain places, or hold certain jobs, or for women to vote. I mean, it's outrageous when you think about it now. Like, really? We weren't allowed to vote? I know that there will be a time similarly when we look back. In India as well, it's already there in much of America and much of the rest of the world, but there will be a time when we look back in India and we say, God, I can't believe there was a time when this was against the law. I don't know how much time it will be. I hope it's not very much time. But just because there's a law on the books or a law not on the books doesn't mean that something is necessarily in alignment with Dharma. There have been a lot of different times, a lot of different cultures, a lot of different societies, a lot of different moments in time in which things were legal that were very much against Dharma, and in which things were not legal that are very much in line with Dharma, like equality. So what I would say is simply, A, have patience. It will happen. B, do not despair. This is not about you. I mean, it feels like it, but it isn't. And number 3, keep working. Because luckily laws can keep being changed. When we feel like there is something that is happening in a legal system that is not in alignment with what we believe to be true and right and just, we have beautiful opportunities to keep working to change laws. I mean, this is the great thing about living in democratic worlds, about living in free worlds, where we do have that power to work to change laws. So it's not a law I agree with. As I mentioned, it is something I hope will be changed. But in the meantime, stay resilient. Do not give up. Know that just because, for whatever reason, there was pressure to pass this law, it doesn't mean that everyone is not equal. In spirit, in morality, in ethics, yes, legally there is an inequality right now. But in dharma and in morality and in ethics and in spirituality, all are equal. And sometimes we have to hold that until the law catches up. Laws keep changing. They change as society changes, as cultural norms change. And I've been in India 27 years, and India has come a long way in a lot of ways over this time. And I have great hope and faith that it will continue to evolve in that way. Other questions that anyone here has before we take any more that came from the online audience? Yeah, there's a microphone right in front of you.
Hello? There you go. Got it.
Good.
Hey, I'm Jordan. Nice to meet you. How can you live your life with purpose if you don't yet know what that purpose is?
Great question. So, we all actually have several purposes in our life. The idea that there's only one purpose for each of us is not just untrue, but it is debilitating, and it's tragic, and it's a myth of recent days. Our grandparents did not struggle over figuring out their purpose. It's a very, very recent epidemic. Now, on the one hand, it's actually a sign of great progress, because one of the reasons our grandparents didn't struggle with it was roles were so predefined that they didn't actually have the great spectrum of freedom that most of us do today, to be whoever we want, whatever we want, to do whatever we want, wherever we want, however we want. I mean, there's so many new ways of living, of making a living, that didn't exist just a couple of generations ago. So on the one hand, it's fantastic, but on the other hand, it's given rise to this epidemic of confusion and insecurity and inability to locate my purpose, my thing. So if you find yourself in that case, recognize, first of all, that all of us share a purpose, which is to experientially know who we are. Spiritually, that's what we've been told for thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years, throughout all different rises and falls of civilizations, all different changes in the structure of our world. One thing has stayed the same, which is the purpose of human life is actually to have that awareness, that knowledge, that knowing, that waking up, enlightenment, realization experience. The other purpose of which you speak has much more to do with me here in this human body with this set of unique skills and abilities and characteristics and experiences and opportunities and background. Like, amidst that, what's my unique purpose? And what you may find as you go through your life is that you've got a lot of them, even on the human level. So the first, of course, is the spiritual level, which is really what we need to dedicate ourselves mostly to. The what to do here as humans becomes much more self-evident when we actually know who we are as spiritual beings. We are much more in tune with, able to hear and respond to the calls of the universe when we are connected spiritually. So let that be your focus for the moment. But then also, as you're moving through your human existence, all of our purposes also have another thing in common, which is they give something back to the world. No one has a purpose which is just to, for example, amass great wealth. Somebody may dedicate their lives to it, but you would be really hard-pressed to say, oh yeah, that's your dharma, just amass a lot of wealth. Or, oh, your dharma is just to build yourself, really big muscles, or build a beautiful house. Dharma always has to do with how does your thread of karma intersect with all of the other threads of karma of all of the other people and other species with whom your life is intersecting. And so it's always going to be something about giving back, contributing to, making an impact. And it may be in what feels like a very small way. It may be in what feels like a very big way. It may be in what feels like an enjoyable way. It may be in what feels like not such an enjoyable way. The core treatise on Dharma, the Bhagavad Gita, spoken by Bhagwan Sri Krishna to Arjuna on the battlefield, is a perfect example of having your Dharma be something that does not feel good at all, that is actually not enjoyable at all. Nonetheless, it's what you're here to do. Arjuna needed to fight that war. His dharma was to restore dharma, to restore righteousness to the kingdom, to the people, to the land. And with his cousin brother Duryodhana and his family at the reins, adharma, lack of integrity, lack of righteousness was reigning. And so his purpose was to fight a war. Not fun, not enjoyable at all. So our purposes, our dharmas, take a lot of different manifestations and roles and shapes. But if you're open to that voice of the divine, Arjuna actually had Bhagwan Krishna standing in his chariot speaking to him and telling him. So it's hard not to feel a little bit jealous in that way, like, would someone just give it to me in 700 verses, please? But we can take what Bhagwan Krishna gave Arjuna actually for us. Because even though Arjuna's war was a very literal one, good guys, bad guys, land they're fighting over, it was very literal, 18 days. Metaphorically, as the teaching, the parable that all good scriptures are, it's implementable in our life. There are wars going on. There's literal wars going on. Actually people fighting and killing each other. there is adharma, lack of righteousness, going on in plenty of places and plenty of ways in the world, whether it's actually war and violence, oppression, suppression, environmental destruction. Whatever it may be, there's a lot of adharma going on in the world. But there's also wars in all of our own minds, between truth and falsehood, ego and true self. And so in this way, you could look at, for example, the work of a psychologist, the work of someone doing interfaith dialogue, the work of someone planting trees, the work of someone teaching kindergarten, the work of someone stuffing envelopes for an organization that's doing good work, or designing a website for an organization that's doing good work, or someone who's out there knocking on doors, raising money for an organization that's doing good work, or sewing the socks, as our grandmothers did, sewing the socks for the men in battle. Like, there's an infinite number of ways that we each can contribute, even if you don't yet have a really clear download of, like, this specific thing is my purpose. There are so many real and, they're all real, but so many literal and so many metaphoric battlegrounds, but very real places and situations in which that which is not right is taking place. Whether it's poverty, homelessness, lack of education. You could make sandwiches and take them out and feed the poor people, and that is purpose. That is bringing light to darkness. That is bringing dharma to adharma. That is using your gifts in service of the world. And so, I just gave 5, 6, 7, 8 examples of so many different ways, so many different paths that people serve to give of themselves to this multifaceted battleground that we all find ourselves in. And I would say, allow yourself both of those first two things. First, the spiritual practice of knowing who you are, because that is core and key. And then, if through that you still don't feel like there's kind of a direct signal, sign, sense of, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do. And by the way, not everyone gets them. There's nothing at all that says, every single person is going to have this clear sense. A lot of people live very beautiful, meaningful, wonderful, fulfilling, great lives, serving and giving in a multitude of different ways, either all at once or because they've had 10 different careers and opportunities throughout their lives. They've done this for a while, then that for a while, then this for a while, and in each thing they learn something new. So there's no hard and fast rule. Also remember another very key point, which is your purpose does not always pay the bills. That's another big myth that's going on, is when I figure out what my purpose is, it's going to also be lucrative. Not true at all. It may not bring in any money whatsoever, and the money that you're using to make the sandwiches may end up coming out of your own pocket. Many, many people find themselves in situations in which they do one thing to make money, and another thing, or a whole multitude of other things, because they feel like those things are their purposes. And it may be creating art, it may be creating music, it may be writing literature or poetry or songs. There's an infinite number of ways that each of us blossoms into the universe. And just allow that to happen, and just keep giving yourself different experiences and ways, and keep giving back as much as you can in all of the different ways. And maybe one of those ways will speak to you and say, oh yeah, this is exactly what I'm supposed to do. And maybe it won't. And maybe when you look back on your life, you will have dozens and dozens of different ways that you fulfilled your ultimate purpose in life, which is to share and give. And there's no right way or better way. Beautiful, yeah. Any other questions? Yes. You can use this mic here, yeah.
Ma'am, I have a simple question to you. When you're starting, you say about the LGBT community, and so they have to wait for so many, just like in the past. You say the examples almost don't have a right to vote. So I have a simple question to you. For taking the example of LGBT community, how much time they have to become the victim of this society?
How much time do our LGBTQ sisters and brothers have to be victims of society? I wish I knew. I really wish I knew. What I can say is just what history has shown us, whether it's apartheid, whether it's slavery, whether it's gender inequality, and all of the different ways that we have seen throughout history. I mean, imagine, just a couple of 100 years ago, it was legal to have other human beings as slaves. I mean, can you even imagine that there were laws on books in which someone could be my slave, had zero rights. They were the equivalent of property. A few hundred years later, we cannot even imagine that as a possibility. We cannot imagine a possibility of a sign over a water fountain that says whites coloreds. And again, I know there will be a time when we cannot even imagine discriminating against people on the basis of sexual orientation. When that will be, I'm not clairvoyant. But again, if we look throughout history at all of the different ways that equality and rights have been brought, it has been brought by people who saw a higher truth, a greater truth, and they worked for it. So they didn't identify as victims. They identified as change makers. And that's a really important shift because, yes, objectively we can say they are a victim of discrimination, absolutely. But the victim mentality paralyzes us. Whatever we feel like we're a victim of. Could be gender inequality, of which there is still a whole bunch. It could be inequality on the basis of race or religion. There's so many other ways that discrimination takes place. But when we feel like victims, we are paralyzed. And paralysis is the opposite of change.
Okay.
I promise you that heterosexual people en masse are not going to be the ones who are going to bring about the change necessary for the LGBTQ community. And so what we need is, if the mentality can shift from being victim to being change maker, we recognize something that is wrong and we work to change it rather than feeling pity for our poor old victim self. And then we just, drown our sorrows in alcohol or drugs or food or Facebook or whatever it may be, and we don't bring about change. So we really need to work together to bring about change, to bring about equality. And I know it will happen. I pray. One of the things that we have these days that none of those other movements had is social media, which certainly can also be an agent of separation and polarization, but it can be a great agent of bringing people together for change, a great agent of movements for change. And so we need to really harness all of the tools that we have to bring about the change that's needed. Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah, last question.
Hello, ma'am. I have a question aligned with my friend sitting next to me. After having supposed that he has achieved his purpose, how should he carry out self-healing?
How should you carry out?
Self-healing.
Self-healing.
Yeah. Thank you.
When we look at Mother Ganga, one of the beautiful lessons and teachings that we get from Mother Ganga is that she flows and flows regardless of what we do to her. So you pollute Mother Ganga and she keeps flowing. And in a moment, at least from where you stand, the pollution obviously is still there and it washes up downstream and it wreaks all kinds of havoc. But at least from the viewpoint where you stand, that pollution is gone. And even as we work tirelessly to stop pollution of the rivers, on a deep spiritual level, it's actually a beautiful lesson. No matter what you do to her, she keeps flowing, keeps flowing, keeps flowing, keeps flowing, keeps cleaning herself. This area, this ghat, I can pollute it today. I can throw my trash in it. I can go to the toilet in it. I can do all kinds of horrible things to it. And if I come back an hour later, it's going to be clean. 10 minutes later, it's going to be clean. And from that, we actually take a beautiful teaching, which is that the self has that capacity. We only need healing on a deep spiritual level when we are holding on to anger and grudges and pain and negative thought patterns and false beliefs. That's what we need healing from. If I'm able to clear myself of whatever it is that comes in, then I don't need healing later. As people injure us, If we hold grudges, hold anger, hold pain, hold resentment, hold an identification as the victim, well, then I'm going to need a lot of healing later on. But if as people injure me, I am able to wash it away because I know that it is not about me. It is about them. They are injuring me. I mean, it's like if I pollute Ganga, that's not about Ganga. It's about me. It shows that I am a senseless, thoughtless, not ethical, not moral being. Doesn't make any statement about Ganga. It doesn't say anything about her. She is no less pure, beautiful, divine, amazing because I've thrown my trash in her. And in the same way, if someone harms you, that doesn't have to change your sense of self unless you let it. If we're able to recognize that people are harming us because of their ignorance, pain, anger, negativity, confusion, jealousy, etc., etc., well, then we're able to just let it go. My favorite way of thinking about this is, imagine that you've got a beautiful white couch and your friend comes over and you sit your friend on your beautiful white couch and then you go in the kitchen and you, with your own hands, make a piping hot cup of tea for your friend and you give it to them, and your friend then takes the cup of tea and spills it on your white couch and then stands up and walks out of your house. Okay? What are you going to do? What's the first thing you're going to do? Clean the couch. Spoken like a woman of the house. She knows. Clean the couch. Deal with everything else later. Clean the couch. Because if not, it's going to stain. And it's going to be much harder, if not impossible, to get out later. But what most of us do is we allow the stain to set while we're off running down the street after that friend, yelling, "Who do you think you are? Get back here, fix my couch, I can't believe it." We're taking pictures of the couch, we're posting them on social media so everybody else can see what that rascal did to your couch. And we were so nice, I made them tea with my own hands, like, aren't I a great person? Can you believe what they did to me? Meanwhile, we end up as the ones with a smelly, festering, ant-infested tea stain on our white couch. And they've gone off on their own way. So, assuming that we have enough wisdom and enough common sense to do exactly what she said and clean the couch first, can we have the same common sense to do that for our own hearts? We value our couches enough. Do we value our hearts enough? People hurt us. The metaphorical pouring the tea on the couch. They do it on purpose. They do it by accident, knowingly, unknowingly. But ultimately, at the end of the day, that doesn't really matter. What matters is I need to clean it. They meant to do it. They didn't meant to do it. They didn't mean to do it. Either way. The very first thing I need to do is clean my heart. Let it go. Breathe it out. Give it to Ganga. Have a yagna. Plant it in a tree. Take a shower. A dozen different ways, but just wash yourself from it. Because your heart is so much more important than yelling at that person and making them come back and you better apologize, you better fix this. Then we don't need healing later on. And the healing, by the way, can be done any minute, any moment. If you were just coming from the Arati with us, I was speaking just tonight about getting free, Jivan Mukti. That freedom from the games of the mind. These are the games of the mind. The stuff that says, I'm a victim of this, I've been hurt by that, I have this. There's something wrong with me. It's a game of the mind. You can be healed in this very moment if you just let go. You know, it's like kids sometimes, they'll get a little cut, a little boo-boo, and you've got all of those really cute kids' Band-Aids, you know, that have all of the cartoon figures and cute things on them, and you'll put the Band-Aid on the child, and then a few days later you want to take the Band-Aid off because you know that whatever it is has healed and they don't need the Band-Aid anymore. But they love it. And they're always like, no, leave it on, leave it on, leave it on. And you say, well, but you don't need it anymore. Like, it's over. No, I want it, leave it. And we act like that. We act like we are still wounded. When actually we're not. We're whole. We're healed. But like kids, we've got these Band-Aids on that every time we look down, they make us feel like, oh yeah, I'm still wounded. I need healing. Take off the Band-Aid and you'll realize that you're healed. Beautiful, good question. Thank you. Have a beautiful rest of your evening. Now that I'm back, we'll now be gathering for satsang again every night, starting somewhere between 6:15 and 6:30, depending on what time Arati ends. So we usually start just about 10-15 minutes after the Ganga Arati ends, which brings us in here sometime between 6:15 and 6:30. So I look so forward to seeing you all tomorrow. And so much love to you all.